This book is called The Moose Belongs to Me by Oliver Jeffers. Wilfred owned a moose. He hadn't always owned a moose. The moose came to him a while ago, and he just knew that it was meant to be his. He thought he would call him Marcel, and he made a little tag to hang from his antlers, and on the tag it says Marcel. He began following Marcel, explaining the rules of how to be a good pet. Much of the time, it seemed as though the moose wasn't listening, but Wilfred knew he was, mostly because he followed Rule 4 very well. And Rule 4 said, not making too much noise while Wilfred plays his record collection. Sometimes the moose wasn't a very good pet. He generally ignored Rule 7, which said, going whichever way Wilfred wants to go. The moose had a very good sense of direction, and Wilfred did not. And because the moose was particularly poor on Rule 7, which was going whichever way Wilfred wants to go, subsection B said maintaining a certain proximity to home, Wilfred quickly learned to bring some string along on their outings so he could find his way back. Sometimes the moose was an excellent pet. He had no trouble with rule number 11, providing shelter from the rain. Or rule number 16, knocking down things that are out of Wilfred's reach. See, he knocked some apples down so Wilfred could have a little snack. One day, as Wilfred discussed their plans for the coming year, on a particularly long walk, he made a terrible discovery. Someone else thought she owned the moose. This little old lady says, "Rodrigo, you're back!" Wilfred was dumbstruck. This moose was Marcel, not Rodrigo. The old lady was mistaken, and Wilfred thought it only proper that he correct her. He said, "This moose belongs to me," he explained. There's another page here. And to prove it, he called Marcel and said, "Heel." But the moose did not respond. He seemed more interested in the old lady. She said, "Good, Rodrigo," because he came to her to get an apple. Embarrassed and enraged, Wilfred rushed off for home. He said, "Fine." But in his haste and miles from anywhere, he tripped over his string and got tangled up. Yikes. And there he lay. Wilfred was beginning to get a little bit worried. It was getting late and the monsters would be out soon. Oh boy, that was scary for a little boy. He had just ruled out the last of his options. First, he thought Smokey Bear would come and save him. He thought he would find a hammer or rain, penguin, a saw, a shark. See, any of those could help him get out of his mess. And then along came the moose and performed Rule 73 brilliantly, rescuing your owner from perilous situations. Do you see how Marcel picked him up by that string? All was forgiven, and perhaps Wilfred admitted he had never really owned the moose anyway. With that in mind, he and the moose reached a compromise. The moose would agree to all of Wilfred's rules whenever it suited him. So basically, in other words, if the moose didn't want to obey the rules, he didn't. When he wanted to obey the rules, then he did. And then there's a little old man who says, "Dominique, you're back, and you brought me an apple." So it looks like the moose visited a lot of people, because one lady named him Rodrigo, the little boy named him Marcel, this old man named him Dominique. So that moose went and visited everybody. The end.